You may have heard of the likes of Christopher Columbus, Marco Polo, Ferdinand Magellan, Hernan Cortez, Amerigo Vespucci, and Francisco Pizarro. But my story, the story of an African explorer, navigator, and voyager to the Americas before all those aforementioned, must be told. I am Mansa Abubakari Keita II. The ninth Mansa, King of Kings, of the Mali Empire, founded by my grandfather Sundiata Keita. As a boy growing up in the royal court of the Keita dynasty of the Mali Empire, my younger brother Musa and I were privileged to receive the finest education. Coming up, we heard stories about lands across the Atlantic Ocean. While I would often dream of traveling west to sail off into the massive ocean, my brother Musa dreamed of traveling east to make pilgrimage to Mecca. While studying at Sankore University, I encountered maps from Muslim geographers, Moorish navigators, and scholars from Timbuktu, who had concluded that the Atlantic Ocean waters which washed the western end of Mali, was not the end of the world. Diplomats from Morocco, North Africa, and scholars from the University of Timbuktu, promoted new ideas about a spherical-shaped globe and worlds beyond the sea. While at Sankore University, I studied ocean currents, navigational charts, and learned how to navigate using the stars. I heard amazing tales of people from Western Sudan who ventured across the Atlantic Ocean some 2,000 years earlier. In the year 1310 AD, in the city of Niani, on the left bank of the Sankarini River, I ascended to the throne, and was inaugurated as the ninth Mansa of the Mali Empire. The time had come. I now had the resources at my disposal to realize my transoceanic ambition. I decided to use all my power and wealth to realize the dream that I had since my childhood. The Mali Empire had been extended down along the Gambia River to the ocean. I was master of the largest empire in the world, larger than the Arabs and larger than the Holy Roman Empire. I wanted to do something different with my regency, something new, something for which there was no precedent. The idea of making pilgrimage to Mecca bored me. I was bored by men who only discussed religion and repeated themselves endlessly. I surrounded myself with people of like minds, scientists, astronomers, navigators, and scholars of Timbuktu who entertained theories of a sphere-shaped world and dreamed of lands beyond the waters, as men in the 21st century now dream of life on worlds beyond the stars. I would spare no expense to build a fleet. I sent the announcement to let it be known throughout Mali and beyond. To all those who fished and sailed in lakes and rivers and off the sea's great coasts, to all those who know about boats and water currents and wind currents and direction finding by the map of the stars. To all those who know about marine engineering and nautical sciences. Let the Samana people come forward, to whom Sundiata had given the monopoly of the water. Let the Bozo people come forward, who are known as great boatmen of the Niger River. Call unto the boatmen of the Gambia and Senegal rivers. Call unto the people of Lake Chad, where it was said that men still built boats on the principles of the ancient Egyptians. Let it be known that they were all needed at the royal court of the Mali Empire. Great debate arose as to what kind of ships should be built. Some of my advisors said the ships should most certainly carry a sail. Other advisors said that the ships should not depend on a sail, saying that they could be stalled for days on the sea if there was no wind. Some advised that the ships that we build should be like the ships the Bantu and Arabs of East Africa were using on the Indian Ocean, which could change from sail to oar and from oar to sail, so that it would have the double advantage of wind power and muscle power. Some advisors said it was pointless to call on the experience of the river people because the ocean to the west was no river and it did not behave like an inland lake or stream. Some advisors said that we would have to build something truly massive to meet the monstrous moods of the ocean, and rivercraft would simply be dashed to pieces. Other advisors said big ships sank more easily on stormy water than small ones because they set up too much resistance to the wind and waves. I listened to all the hypotheses, theories, and opinions, but I took no chances. I decided that there would be no single design, no one kind of boat. I gave my blessings to all designs that seemed practical. I was not going to gamble on one man's theory and ignore the rest. We would use the scientific method and experimentation to end the debate and determine which idea was correct. I saw the configuration of my fleet like the political configuration of Mali. I stood at the helm as the central and unifying authority of the most diverse crew of elements on the Sudanic deck of the world. We began the great boat building operations along the Senegambia seacoast of Mali. Troops were withdrawn from wars and from other minor campaigns, to focus their energies on this ambitious shipbuilding campaign. Blacksmiths, carpenters, boat captains, magicians, diviners, scholars from Timbuktu, gold merchants, potters, porters, weavers and jewelers, were all assembled to contribute to the shipbuilding effort. Caravan guides, who used the compass and navigational instruments to plot their paths across the sandy sea of the Sahara, were called upon to serve as navigators across the ocean waters of the Atlantic. While the building of the boats progressed, a number of megalith structures were erected, stone observatories, such as ancient seafaring nations used for astronomical calculations, the ruins of which survive today as indications of the science of that time and the activities of that place. I specified that each boat built for the ocean voyage should be accompanied by a supply boat, which stored gold and other items for trade, along with enough food to last its company for at least 2 years. 200 master boats and 200 supply boats were built. As the task neared completion, I encamped on the seacoast to watch the final stages of the operation. It was the scene an Egyptian pharaoh must have witnessed during the erection of a pyramid. I felt pride at the thought that I was the only king in the world at that time who was wealthy enough and at peace enough to divert such a vast labor force from military and agrarian duties to a scientific exploration. The fleet of 200 ships departed in the year 1310 AD. When the ships departed, their absence was long, and I could not find peace. I was obsessed to learn of the outcome of the expedition that I had hurled across the spaces of the ocean. I could think of nothing else. Early one morning the following year, a captain of one of the ships had returned, and was waiting outside the gates of the palace to talk to me. The captain of the boat said that they sailed for a long while, until they came to what seemed to be a strong current flowing in the open ocean. The other ships sailed on, but as they came to that strong current they were swiftly pulled out over the horizon of the ocean until they disappeared. The captain said that he did not know what became of the ships because the waters were strong and swift, and he was afraid and turned back and did not enter the current. This news made me more fixed in my obsession. Some said I even bordered on madness. I went with my royal court to the plain at the western edge of Mali where the first fleet had been built and had disembarked. Like the pyramid builders of dynastic Egypt, I began to recognize my whole empire around a single massive project. I assembled a vast army of craftsmen. I scaled up the shipbuilding operation, this time to send a massive armada of 2,000 ships to explore across the ocean. Paired men and women were being chosen for the new expedition, and fears were expressed by my subjects that in my madness I would sacrifice hundreds of my people to the voyage across the ocean. But I was unwavering. I never looked back. I stayed amongst the shipbuilders and never returned to the royal court at Niani. This time I wanted to lead the expedition myself. I had a special boat built for myself, with a throne on the stern deck, shaded by the bird emblazoned parasol. I would commandeer the fleet by means of the talking drum. In the year 1311 AD, I abdicated the throne, and conferred the power of the regency to my brother Kankan Mansa Musa, on the understanding that he was to assume the throne if, after a reasonable lapse of time, I did not return. My brother Kankan Mansa Musa told me that if he did succeed to the throne after me, he would choose his way to make his mark upon the world, to lead a massive train of caravans traveling east across the desert on a pilgrimage to Mecca. Then one day, in the year 1311 AD, dressed in a flowing white robe and a jeweled turban, I took leave of Mali. I gave up the throne in the name of science and discovery, and set out with my fleet to travel west across the Atlantic Ocean, never to return to Mali. In the year 1312 AD, we landed and settled on the coast of present-day Brazil in a place known as Recife. The other name we gave the site was Pernambuco, which comes from Borbambuco, the Mandi name for the rich gold fields that accounted for much of the wealth of the Mali Empire. We named other cities with Mandi names in the area we settled in, including Mandinga Port, Mandinga Bay, and Sierra de Mali. This was a West African colony in the Americas established by the 2,200 ships which disembarked from the Mali Empire under my rule. The European explorer, Christopher Columbus, even made mention of the African presence in the Americas in his logs. Columbus stated that the purpose of his third voyage was to test the claims of King John II of Portugal, that canoes had been found which set out from the coast of West Africa and sailed to the Americas. Columbus also stated he heard claims of the native inhabitants of the Caribbean island of Hispaniola, that black people had come from the southeast who were trading with spears that were made of a gold metal alloy developed in West Africa. Columbus's son, Ferdinand, said his father told him that he had seen black people north of what is now Honduras. The scholarly art historian, Count Alexander von Luthenow, also discusses 14th century carvings and sculptures that were found in the Americas which show women and men wearing turbans, clearly African with tribal marks cut on their cheeks, indicating that the people came from Mali. We Africans arrived in the Americas long before Columbus. 3 currents can carry Africans to the Americas, 1 current off the Cape Verde Islands, 1 current off the Senegambia coast, and 1 current off the southern coast of Africa. We Africans were the first to navigate the ocean waters, and the science of astronavigation is the means by which we explored the 4 corners of the world. We navigated the 7 seas, by way of the 7 heavens.